In our next lesson, we will be subtracting fractions. Fractions must have the same denominators before they can be subtracted. For example, 4/5 minus 1/5 equals 3/5. We subtract the numerators. 4 minus 1 equals 3. And we use the same denominator, fifths. Let's try another one. Here I have 6/9. I subtract 4/9. I am left with 2/9. 6 minus 4 is 2. The denominator 9 stays the same. Remember, to subtract fractions, you need to use the same denominator. Here I have 4/7 minus 2/14. These have different denominators. We will need to rewrite them. First, we find the least common multiple of the two denominators. We list the multiples of 7 and the multiples of 14. We look for the first multiple they have in common, 14. We will use 14 as our least common denominator. So we'll write 14 in the denominator of both fractions and rewrite equivalent fractions by writing new numerators. 7 times 2 equals 14. So on top, 4 times 2 equals 8. 14 times 1 equals 14. 2 times 1 equals 2. Now that we have common denominators, we can subtract. 8 minus 2 is 6. Our denominator, 14, stays the same. 6/14. Of course, if our answer can be reduced, we're expected to reduce it. We will divide both the top and bottom by 2, which will give us 3/7. The answer, 3/7. Here's our next example, 1/4 minus 1/5. Again, the denominators are not the same. We'll need to find the least common denominator. The least common multiple of 4 and 5 are listed below. We have multiples of 4 and multiples of 5. We highlight the first one they have in common, which is 20. We will use 20 as our least common denominator. Now we'll rewrite equivalent fractions. 1/4, we can say 4 times 5 equals 20. So on top, 1 times 5 equals 5. 1/5, 5 times 4 equals 20. 1 times 4 equals 4. Now we subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1, and our denominator, 20ths. Our answer, 1/20. Let's practice subtracting mixed numbers with unlike denominators. Remember, a mixed number is a whole number with a fraction part. We're going to take 4 and 3/5 and subtract 1 and 1/6. The fractions have different denominators. In order to subtract, we need to rewrite our fractions using the same denominator. Let's first find the least common multiple for the denominators 5 and 6. Find the first multiple they have in common, which is 30. The least common multiple of 5 and 6 is 30. We can use that to write equivalent fractions. We'll take 3/5 and write it with a denominator of 30. and we'll take 1/6 and write it with a denominator of 30. Now, to write the equivalent fractions, we need to write numerators. Now that we have denominators of 30, I will show you how to write the numerators. Take 5, multiply by 6. 5 times 6 equals 30. So I multiply the top also by 6. 3 times 6 is 18. For the second fraction, I know that 6 times 5 equals 30. So on top, I will also multiply by 5. 1 times 5 is 5. So now we have written our equivalent fractions. Now that we've written our fractions as equivalent fractions with common denominators, don't forget there's a whole number part to our numbers, our whole mixed numbers. So we should write 4 and 18/30 minus 1 and 5/30. As before, we're going to begin by subtracting our numerators. 18 minus 5 is 13. Our denominator stays the same, 30. Now we subtract the whole numbers. 4 minus 1 is 3. Our answer is 3 and 13/30. Let's try subtracting a fraction from a whole number. Here I have the whole number 6 minus a mixed number 2 and 3/4. In order to subtract, I need a fraction with a denominator of 4 that would be the same denominator as the fraction 3/4. So, what can I do with a 6? I can rename it as 5 plus 1, and 1, which has many names, can be shown as 4/4. In this way, I have created a mixed number, 5 and 4/4, so it will be easy to subtract 2 and 3/4. I have set this up so that I will have a common denominator of 4ths. Let's now subtract our fractions. 4 minus 3 is 1. Our denominator is 4. And the whole numbers, 5 minus 2 is 3. So our answer is 3 and 1/4. Here's an interesting problem. I have 4 and 1/5 minus 2 and 3/5. Both fractions have the same denominator, which is nice. But unfortunately, I'm being asked to subtract 1 minus 3. Taking 3 away from 1 when 1 is part of a larger number requires that we borrow. We need to borrow. So for the moment, let's ignore the 1/5 and look at the whole number 4. We will rename 4 as 3 plus 1, and the 1 can be renamed using a fraction where the numerator and denominator are the same. Because the fraction I'll be subtracting has a denominator of 5, I will choose to rename the 1 as 5/5. So I will rename 3 plus 1 as 3 and 5/5. Let's look back at our original mixed number, 4 and 1/5. We renamed the 4 as 3 and 5/5, and now we need to add 1/5, the 1/5 that was originally in our mixed number. This gives us 3 and 6/5. Minus 2 and 3/5. Subtract your numerators. Use the same denominator, 5. Subtract the whole numbers. 3 minus 2 is 1. Our answer is 1 and 3/5. Let's try a problem that has all the steps involved. We will subtract 3 1/10 minus 1 1/6. This problem has mixed numbers with different denominators. So first, let's find a common denominator for 10 and 6. I'll list the multiples of 10 and 6. Find the first multiple they have in common, 30. The least common multiple of 10 and 6 is 30. We will rewrite our fractions with the common denominator 30. This is how we do it. Here I have 1/6. 6 times 5 equals 30. So on top, 1 times 5 will equal 5. 5/30. 1/10, the 10 times 3 will equal 30. Multiply the top by 3 also. 1 times 3 equals 3. We have 3/30. Of course, you don't want to forget these are mixed numbers, so you need to include the whole numbers from the original problem. Oops! Did you notice that we have 3/30 minus 5/30? 3 minus 5 we can't do when they're part of another number. We need to borrow. Let's look at our mixed numbers, 3 3/30 and 1 5/30. Let's forget about the 3/30 for a moment and rename the whole number 3 as 2 plus 1. 1 can be named as any fraction where the numerator and denominator are the same number. Because the fraction we're subtracting has a denominator of 30, I will rename the 1 as 30/30. Our mixed number is 2 30/30. Don't forget that our original mixed number was 3 3/30. We need to add the 3/30 into our mixed number. So 2 30/30 plus 3/30 equals 2 33/30. Now that we have common denominators and we have a larger numerator in the top fraction than in the bottom fraction, I will do our subtraction. 33 minus 5, which is 28. Our denominator will stay the same, 30ths. And then we subtract our whole numbers, 2 minus 1, which is 1. There's one more step. You look at this fraction, you say 28/30, that can be reduced. So how will we reduce it? The greatest common factor for 28 and 30 is 2. So we'll divide the top number by 2 and the bottom number by 2, which will give us 14/15. Don't forget the whole number, it's part of your answer. 1 14/15.